time now for The Strategist. With the economy front and center, can either candidate ride this issue to a win? Joining me, Democratic strategist and former Howard Dean advisor Steve McMahon, and Republican strategist and former McCain spokesman Todd Harris. Todd, usually when the economy goes down, the party that's running the show goes down with it. Why should that be different this time?
I think it's a testament to John McCain's maverick credentials. He has, for the last 10 years or so, been able to assign himself an identity totally separate from the Republican Party. When I worked for him in 2000, this was a huge burden around our neck. We used to joke that if only independents and Democrats could vote for us, we'd do just fine. But now he's benefiting from that same identity.
But his chief surrogate, Carly Fiorina, formerly of Hewlett-Packard, said today he's not qualified to run a single American business. But she says he could be a great president.
Could be a great president.
How does that
really
work?
Run a business, but
he can't run a single business, and yet he can run the whole shebang.
Someone give me a bus so I can throw her under it.
How fast will she last before she's under that bus? I would say by tonight.
You've got to wonder. She's put herself under the bus 2 or 3 times now. And with all due respect, she said that John McCain, neither John McCain nor Barack Obama nor Sarah Palin could have run Hewlett-Packard. And apparently, neither could she.
Oh,
at least according to her board.
Let me ask you about another issue. The fundamentals of our economy are strong. I'm looking at the fundamentals here. Production people here have come up with the fundamentals. Ready? Here are the fundamentals. Unemployment's going up to 6.1, highest in 5 years. It's not a 9/11 thing. It was higher before. The deficit's now 357. It was when they came in 287 as a surplus. The debt of the United States is right about 10 trillion right now. 400,000 houses in foreclosure right now. Real people are ready to be dumped out of their houses. Aren't those the fundamentals? Housing, joblessness, the debt, the deficit, aren't those the reality of American economic life?
Yeah, and the economy is in crisis, which John McCain
has said. What's it mean by fundamentally in good shape?
He says that he's talking about the entrepreneurial spirit of the American worker.
What
are the fundamentals? The entrepreneurial spirit?
Last week, I was willing to come on the show and say I'd give Barack Obama the benefit of the doubt when he's saying this whole lipstick thing, and I think Steve should give John McCain the benefit of the doubt when he talks about the fundamentals of the economy.
He's been doing that for 22. Let me ask you, Herbert Hoover said the fundamentals are sound back in 32. Why would he choose the very word that Herbert Hoover used? Is he Mick Hoover?
He's talking about the American worker, but he's also saying our economy is in crisis.
The American worker isn't what is described by the fundamentals of the economy. There are all those things that Chris just laid out. This isn't if he had just said it one time and he had misspoken, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. But he said it 16 times now in those exact words.
Here's how he explains himself today. Let's get the state-of-the-art version of fundamentals. Matt Lauer this morning with John McCain.
You said the fundamentals of the economy are strong, yet your campaign has released an ad saying that the economy is in crisis. Clarify this for me. Doesn't seem as if both things can be true.
Well, it's obviously true that the workers of America are the fundamentals of our economy and our strength and our future. And I believe in the American worker, and someone who disagrees with that is fine. We are in crisis. We all know that.
So when Lehman Brothers faces collapse and Merrill Lynch has to be bought by the Bank of America, we can say that the workers in those companies are good. Therefore, those companies are in good shape. Look, it's a meaningless statement. You could say that the American auto industry, the UAW worker out there, the man and woman's working his butt off or her butt off, they're working hard. But our auto industry is heavily challenged right now by overseas competition. Would you say it's fundamentally strong when it's facing threats from Toyota every day of the week?
I would say the economy is in crisis, which is why it's important to look not just at what these hold on a minute. Not just at what the candidates are saying, but what their actual records are. 5 years ago, John McCain co-sponsored legislation that would have increased regulatory authority over both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, because he said if Congress doesn't step in and do something, these two agencies are going to create a crisis in our housing market and in our economy. Congress did nothing, and that's exactly what happened.
But he's consistently opposed any effort to rein in Wall Street because he's been Mr. Deregulation, and this is exactly what we have to show for it.
He's talking
yesterday, he says the economy is fundamentally strong. This is somebody who says the economy isn't his strong suit, and he's proving it again and again and
Let's
again.
Let's go to common sense land. Let's try to go away from the talk. If the American people got to vote on this kind of thing, would they spend $1 billion in building up the infrastructure? Right now, we've just made this commitment in Georgia, not down south in Dixie, in Georgia over there in Central Russia and Central Asia. Would the American people take $1 billion we have to borrow from the Chinese right now and borrow the money at current market rates and then send that $1 billion and tractors and everything else over to Georgia, or would they spend that money, say, in Ohio or Pennsylvania? The priorities of this administration are neoconservative ideology. Why don't they spend the money here instead of on their ideological programs over in that part of the world where they're trying to, quote, spread democracy?
I would say that most Americans would rather have an investment in a volatile region of the world, spend $1 billion there, than the $1 billion in frivolous earmarks that Barack Obama has requested.
$1 billion on developing the infrastructure, the transportation systems, the energy systems in our older states.
Chris, John McCain supports an investment in our infrastructure in this country, but we also can't turn our backs on volatile parts of the world.
I'm stunned by you, but you would never argue that if the Democrats did that.
That's absolutely not true.
$1 billion.
That's absolutely not true. When Bill Clinton was putting an investment into Bosnia in 1995, 1996, I thought that was a great idea.
The current federal deficit is $357 billion. That means every $1 billion we spend beyond that is borrowed. You would say it's good policy for us to borrow on the international markets in this time of financial crisis, another $1 billion on the world market, try to float bonds somewhere in the world so that we can spend that money over in Georgia?
Well, I don't think, look, this is not a zero-sum game. We have certain obligations.
Thank you, Todd.
I'm going to finish. I wanted to finish.
Okay. We have certain obligations that we need to overseas to keep our country safe. But if you're talking about runaway spending in Washington, if you're talking about cutting pork and wasteful spending, there is not a single person in Washington who has fought harder against pork and against wasteful spending than John McCain.
For every foreign expenditure. And by the way, you talk about runaway spending. The spending's running away. It's going over to Iraq and over to that part of the world. All the money we're spending is over there.
Should we not be investing in Afghanistan? Should we just turn our backs on Afghanistan? Is that what I mean? Is that that's the alternative?
We're building roads and schools and bridges in Iraq. We're spending $10 billion a month there, and John McCain will stay for as long as it takes. This is exactly why we need to bring our troops home and get our resources back into this country, because not just is the Georgia $1 billion off the books, the entire Iraq expenditure is off the books. We're running a $500 billion deficit, and it looks like we're going to run that deficit as far as the eye can see. And if John McCain becomes president, he'll cut taxes and he'll add $300 billion a year to that deficit. It's just lunacy. And you talk about earmarks, but they're $18 billion a year. If you killed every single earmark every single year, it would take 100 years to retire the debt.
All I know is the spending priorities of this administration cannot be defended on national television. If your candidate goes in that debate with Barack Obama and has to defend $1 billion going to Georgia at this time when we don't have any money to spare, we're broke, we can't afford a single troop out of Iraq, I think it's a hard case to make, but you are a good guy to make. I appreciate you. And by the way, Carly Fiorina couldn't do what you do. Anyway, thank you, Steve McMahon. Thank you, Todd. That statement, she will withdraw that by midnight tonight. She will say, yes, John McCain is capable of running a company I run.
Or she'll be summering with Phil Gramm.
Dick Cheney could run one. Rumsfeld could run them. Those guys can run anything. It's amazing. Anyway, by the way, you couldn't run the Defense Department.